so excited to be bringing you this first video in a series of videos about the about the transit of the North Node through Aries and the transit of the South Node through Libra. That is happening July of 2023 through January of 2025. And this is my second time paying attention as we're having these nodal transits that last about 18 months each. And I had so much fun tracking the transit of the North Node through Taurus that I have been already thinking and looking forward to this transit of the North Node through Aries for years now at this point, and we're here. And this expansion, this North Node expansion of our soul onto our soul's path is going to the next level in a big way. Because these nodes move backwards normally, Aries is the last sign. It starts in Pisces and ends in Aries with a culmination of ourself into our new form. Every 18 and a half years, the North Node is going through Aries with this culmination point of us into our new form. And we are going to get to see ourselves come out of the cocoon in a new way. That is what we have in store for us. I am Carly. This is Owning Authenticity. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. As I mentioned, there will be other videos in this series. We have several planned, and I'm not saying this is even the whole list, but today's video is the look back to look forward. Then we'll do more of an overview, kind of the 30,000 foot view of this transit of the North Node through Aries and the South Node through Libra. And then we'll go true, deep diving style, and we will dig deeper into the Aries North Node and the Libra South Node. And by that point, I'm thinking we'll be on into the transit, so I can really be channeling that in there as much as I possibly can. Kitty wants in my lap. For those of you who enjoy timestamps, those are in the description box, so please feel free to jump to wherever you like in the video. And I also want to give a quick acknowledgement, a quick shout out to past me. She did such a good job on the North Node going through Taurus video. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. So well done. Good job, past me. I'm not going to rehash any of that. If I said it in that video, we're just going to pretend like you already know all that. So I'm going to start from the next step, and we're going to, like I said, take it even deeper, go to the next level, just like the Aries North Node wants us to do. So when we analyze the nodal transits through each sign, this is taking us into a realm of karmic astrology. So karmic astrology is really important for each of us personally, right? Like there's mass consciousness karma that we each are helping to resolve by each unraveling our own part. But what your natal chart is showing you is your own personal contribution to the karma of mass consciousness. So you can understand kind of the spinal cord, if you will, of your personal karma by looking at your personal South Node and your personal North Node. What signs are they in? What houses are they in? What aspects are they making to other planets and bodies and points in your natal chart? And all of that tells a story. I will recommend two of my favorite books on the nodes, and I think these are the only two I've read. So 2 out of 2 get a recommendation. But I will recommend more what's the word? Energetic assessment, I would say, is in Jan Spiller's book, Astrology for the Soul. That one is very good and moves a lot of energy through you. Like I'll even go so far as to recommend, like I've got it on Audible so I could listen to it. So I listened through basically every single chapter, and we are all made up of all 12 of the zodiac energies, and every single chapter that she had on every single different North Node helped me to develop a different part of myself. So I cannot recommend her book enough. Again, that's Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. And then the other one I want to recommend is definitely more technical. Like if your ears perked up when I said, what sign is your nodes in, what sign, what houses are they in, what aspects are they making to planets and points. That book, Yesterday's Sky by Stephen Forrest, has chapters, like section by section, on like what if your south node is making a hard aspect to something. What if like then it goes through like, a hard aspect being like a square opposition to Pluto, to the moon, to the sun, and like goes through interpreting like every single thing. Not really, obviously that would be infinite, but like so many of the pieces that you can put together to kind of paint a picture of what is the personal karma that you're bringing into your life. And karma karma has kind of a bad reputation, if you ask me about it, like kind of a negative connotation, where karma, in my mind, as I understand it, just means consequences. I heard somebody talking about it where it's like karma's like a box. Like imagine like a handball court where like it's just like a big white box. And you throw the ball and you know that the ball's gonna bounce off the wall and come back to you, don't you? Like that's the whole point of the earth realm, is this like boomerang effect, this like cause and effect, the law of karma, the lord of karma that sends back to you any balls that you throw. Karma, it's just consequences. And so that is so neutral. That's so neutral. And again, I say karma has a bad reputation because I think most people take the word consequences and they instantly freak out. But it's like, what if you took that in a positive direction and said, what if I throw a ball that when it comes back to me, I'm going to be like, this is the best thing that I've ever had land in my lap? Like, throw the balls that you're going to be excited to have come back to you. That's the option that's available to all of us when we learn how to work with karma, when we learn how to participate with it in a way that feels good to us, where we love the consequences of the seeds that we've sown. A harvest is a consequence of planting seeds in the soil and then watering those seeds and fertilizing those seeds and putting your pesticides down to keep the weeds out and like tilling all of that effort into your crop. The consequence is the harvest. And so this North Node through Aries is a harvest opportunity. If I've ever felt one, this is a big moment of everything that you've put in around this cycle these last 18 and a half years is coming to fruition and is landing in your lap. And we're going to get to see, for better or for worse, the consequences, the balls that we threw out in the handball court, and they're coming back to us hot, coming in hot. So that is like a very basic overview. We'll have to wait until the real overview and the deep dive to like really get into the transit. It's coming, promise. All in good time. So worth the wait, I promise you. This video is really like, okay, so if the overview is the 30,000 foot view, this is the 300,000 foot view, if you want to zoom out with me that far. We're going to look at like all of the cycles, going to give each cycle a little treatment on like what really happened during that cycle from January of 2019 through January of 2028. So we're kind of in the middle of this picture that I'm going to paint for the rest of this video. And it starts with the South Node entering Capricorn, North Node entering Cancer in January of 2019. Okay, so let's do the thing where we use our time machine called our brain, and let's go back to January of 2019, where the South Node entered Capricorn and the North Node entered Cancer. And the North Node in Cancer is all about developing security and our inner underlying stable foundations for our most private self. So that's basically to say our home. Usually, most of us are doing that in our home. That's our space for our innermost security. And so that cycle of basically the recipe was go home and feel into what you're building in your life. And is it sustainable? And so that started in January of 2019 and lasted until July of 2020. So the pandemic literally sent everybody home. And all of us got to, well, no, not all of us. Frontline workers were the exception. Almost everybody on the planet was forced, put on lockdown, made to go home and be there. Cancer North Node. It's amazing. And what a lot of people uncovered was that it's not good. What I'm building in my life, it's not good. It's not what I want it to be. It's full of a lot of things that are keeping me distracted. And if you took away those distractions, like we are right now in lockdown, I am miserable in my life. And I think a lot of people were on autopilot and they didn't really know that. And then the Cancer North Node of like really feel into yourself and how do you feel about your job, about your family, about your spouse, about your friends, about your social life, about your creative life, about your on and on and on. How do you feel about it? And a lot of people got a lot clearer about how they feel, about themselves, about their lives. I mean, we saw mental health issues shoot up, not because anything went wrong, but because people are being disillusioned that I'm miserable and I didn't even know it. I think it was just a bringing it into consciousness with that Cancer North Node, um, bringing to the surface that there is such a misalignment between how I'm constructing my life, the structures that I have in place to support me in my life, and what's true in my heart. And those two things are not together. And like when you built it for them to be apart, like it's not surprising that they're apart. So no big deal. Like we just have to build them so that they're closer together. So that wake up call moment of the Cancer North Node and the lockdown, that the opportunity that presented to go home and be with your emotions. um, yeah, that was a beautiful opportunity that really, obviously, we've been having these cycles on back through the eons of history, but that's where I'm starting in this overview of like kind of everything that's unfolded since then and where we're building to then in these few cycles afterwards. I had something of a different experience during the pandemic, especially the early days, because as I said, the frontline workers were exempted. And as the owner of a grocery store, I was at work more than I had been in a while at that point. And we were there to sell the groceries. And that was one of the few things that people were allowed to get out and do. And it really had the same effect on me as far as kind of like bringing me to my breaking point, bringing me to a point where like I recognized that I was burned out. I'm burned out. I've given it all I could give it and it needs so much more and I just don't have it. And as it turns out, I didn't know about astrology during that cycle. Um, I got to the point though where I could feel enough like how empty my tank was and how like I need to do something to build myself back up. Like, apart from the business I've been trying to give it all to, like I need to focus on myself. And in July of 2020, like the very home stretch of this transit, I downloaded the intuitive insight that I'm ready for my life coach. That was something that I had in the back of my mind for like 10 years before that I want to work with a life coach someday. And I didn't know like what do I mean by that and what kind of a life coach am I talking about and what do I want to work on with them? Like what do you even do with a life coach? I don't know. I want a life coach someday. Like that was just something that I knew. And so July of 2020 downloaded the insight I'm ready for my life coach. And I had a friend at the time who was a life coach, and I asked her, like, is there anybody in your circles that you would recommend? And she's like, yeah, I would definitely recommend my coach. I love her. I've used her. We've renewed many times already. Um, so gave me her information, and I reached out, and the next month in August of 2020 was the first time that I met with my life coach, Melissa, my first life coach. And she showed me my natal chart on that very first session together. And before that, I didn't even know that I had a natal chart, let alone what it looked like or what it meant or how you understood it or anything. August 2020 was my introduction to my natal chart. And I think it's so beautiful because that puts us perfectly in line with the Gemini Sagittarius cycle that came next, the North Node moving from Cancer into Gemini, and the South Node going from Capricorn into Sagittarius. That happened in July of 2020. And when the North Node entered Gemini, I'm going to put my chart on the screen here and share this one little conjunction because little conjunction. When the North Node entered Gemini, it was immediately on my Chiron, and within just a little bit was exactly conjunct my sun. And those two pieces are exactly opposite in Sagittarius at 29 degrees, my Saturn and my Uranus. And so that shift of like literally at the same exact time that the nodes are conjuncting four planets in my natal chart exactly. Here's your natal chart. You need to see this. Here's a person who can walk with you for the next 7 months to help you integrate and open up this Pandora's box that you are meant to see. This is information, Gemini, that you are meant to have. This is soul wisdom from your past that belongs to you, South Node and Sagittarius. It was such a divinely timed introduction. It's one of the reasons why when people are like, oh, astrology, that's bull hockey, and like, I don't believe in it. And I'm like, whatever, dude. Like, it's too close to say that it's not a thing. Like, oh my, I can go on and on. So that was the beginning of that July 2020 point of information getting out there. And when we have the North Node going through Gemini, the highest frequency of Gemini is to be a sponge, to listen and absorb, and anybody's viewpoint. There's nobody's viewpoint you don't want to hear about. Like everyone's experience is relevant and important and interesting. And we took in so much information during that transit. And at the same time, the South Node in Sagittarius was like a scrubber working on our belief system. So like when we would take in new ideas, we would realize that like, wow, like if I'm gonna, I really like how this new idea feels in my body. It's really relaxing. It feels good. It feels right to me. But I can see where it exactly contradicts like this other thing over here. Like I think about kind of what was going on at that time, like the summer of 2020. The one that comes to mind most is the murder of George Floyd, and how many books sold in the aftermath of that. Like not even just like the next couple weeks, but like just kind of still like the conversation, the idea, the experiences, the voices of the minority, the marginalized, they came to the surface and people started listening. And it's so funny because I heard like black people talking about this time as far as like, yeah, white people act like this is brand new information. Like we've been talking about this forever. It's just nobody was listening. And during that time, you got to give it to people. They were listening. They were more receptive. Like people in general, I think we did see the highest frequency of Gemini. People were more receptive. And because of the new information and the new vantage points, the new ideas that we took in, the new people whose story we listened to and absorbed, that naturally provided the scrubber for our belief system and like what is outdated, what needs to go, what no longer serves me or the collective. That was such a beautiful process for, and like I was doing, like absorbing all of this new spiritual information. We also had Neptune in Pisces that, like, kind of maybe a quarter of the way into the North Node through Gemini transit, they would have been square. So there was definitely a lot of spiritual information also downloading onto the planet at that time through many of the people, I got to think, that are watching this video right now. Um, so, all of this new information, Gemini, that we received allowed us to cleanse and purge our beliefs and what we stood for and what we knew to be true, what we believed was true about the world and the state of things and all of that. It was just very eye-opening, very illuminating, in kind of like a non-threatening way. Like there was this another like really high frequency quality of Gemini is emotional detachment, where you're just curious. You just want to know. Like you're able to listen because you're not getting triggered by every little thing, because you're not taking it personally, because you're emotionally detached. So that's kind of Gemini at its best. Um, and so there was a lot of receptivity. There was a lot of downloads that took place, both physical in the physical world, the state of things, and spiritual, and kind of like this bigger path. Like I think about another download I'll tell the story of here that was like right at the beginning, right before this one was actually in July, at the tail end of July of 2020. I sat in on what was called an angel reading. And the way this lady did it, she showed up on Zoom and she was there for like 3 hours. And she would get like 10 or 12 people to buy tickets ahead of time, like reserve a seat in this Zoom. So there was 10 or 12 of us, and we would take turns where each one of us would get like a 15-minute thereabouts reading, angel reading, where she would channel our angels and deliver messages and information that we personally needed to hear at that time. And again, I just like the synchronicities of our spiritual path. Like when you're paying attention, when you're looking out your eyeballs and like watching what's happening, like the timing is speaking to us, because it was probably about 2 weeks before I saw my natal chart, before I was introduced to astrology, that this woman, she was like hearing from my angels and like they're talking to her. She hasn't said anything to me yet. And she's like getting the message or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, you're an astrologer." And I was like, "No, no, I don't think so." And she's like, "Yeah, like the planets and like the transits and the energies of all the planets and like how it impacts us, and like you're like an expert. You're like a master level soul in astrology." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." No, I'm not. And she's like, "I mean, okay, that's what they're telling me. So like, take it with a grain of salt. Do whatever you want with it." 2 weeks later, I have a life coach that I hired through the referral of my friend sitting in front of me, showing me my natal chart, explaining to me that this is your natal chart, this is your unique astrology, and each one of these planets means something different about a different facet of your energy. And so what we're going to do is take it facet by facet and really zoom in on each of these individual pieces so that you can really start to understand and comprehend the whole of who you are. And what came next was a blossoming, like with the right information, with the right beliefs, with the right knowledge of what's true, the right ability to feel what's true in your bones. Like that was my experience of seeing my natal chart and hearing her talk about my energy. Like it was visceral in my bones. I could feel it was true. And that personal experience of the truth, when we can hear and hear and hear and hear and receive and receive and absorb, like so much coming in through that Gemini openness, that's beautiful. And on the Sagittarius end, when we're really good and really not good, in balance, when we're really in balance, when it's working, the mechanics are functioning and everything is like spinning the way it should, we can feel in our body when we've received information that's true for us. And we know that because it relaxes us. it like lets your shoulders fall down. It like makes you breathe a sigh of relief. It lets you like relax your whole body. Like, oh my God, that feels so good to know that like I'm good even when I feel bad, or like whatever universal truth you're contemplating at the time. Um, that ability to receive openly and be identifying which are the nuggets of truth for you so that you can pull them down into your inner fire and forge them into your truth so that you have that. Without that, the compass doesn't really work. It's like, the a compass is using the magnetics of like true north or whatever to like tell you. I don't know how a compass works. Like, what I don't know what I'm saying. But the what I'm saying is like that Sagittarius, especially, it might just be for me. I don't know. Take this with a grain of salt because I have Uranus and Saturn in Sagittarius. And I feel like knowing my own personal truth for myself is my compass working right or not? Like, am I pointed towards my own true north or not? And I feel like for a long time in my life, I spun around in a lot of other people's truth and didn't really know. I'm like, I don't really know the right answer. And learning my unique astrology, that Gemini North Node, Sagittarius South Node cycle of receiving this new information that changed what I believed to be true about myself, it was a game changer. And so now, after the Sagittarius South Node, Gemini North Node cycle, I feel like our compass was a lot more tuned in to our personal true north. Not what the culture is feeding us, not what our parents fed us, not what our friends are doing, what our spouse is doing. You personally, what feels right in your body. And that experience set us up perfectly for the next cycle, which was the one that, well, at the time of recording this, May 4th, 2023, we still have just over 2 more months of this cycle left of the Taurus North Node, Scorpio South Node cycle. Yeah, you go and do that next. Oh, that's a good kitty. Oh my goodness. So in the Taurus Scorpio cycle that started January of 2022 and is lasting until July of 2023, like I said, this one would have been my first time to observe one of these cycles from start to finish, and to know that it's coming and know that the moment has happened when they switch into the different signs. This one was my first time and was such a profound experience that I did so many different videos on that cycle. It appeared in my live stream many times and really set me up for this cycle to kind of give myself the breathing room and the freedom to, one, not repeat anything from last time, and number two, to do the information, to share the information however I want to. And if that means dividing it up into multiple videos, then girl, do it. Gave myself a giant permission slip. So that feels really good, all of that. And that goes along so well with what the Taurus Scorpio cycle was really doing for us anyway, where the Taurus North Node is a development and an invitation in building your inner power, your inner security, your inner resource. Like, you think about resilience and perseverance, like when you got to dig deep, like where are you digging? Because that's Taurus. Like when you got to dig deep inside of yourself, you got to know for yourself that you can do it. Um, Believing in yourself, like in your bones, in a physical level, where you're not going to quit. You're going to keep going. That Taurus is fixed earth. You keep going until you get to where you need to be. And so that's what the Taurus North Node was doing, was kind of building up this inner strength inside of ourselves, while the South Node end in Scorpio, the scrubber that was the Scorpio South Node, is basically scrubbing our existing relationships and the power dynamics inside any of those existing relationships, and saying, where have I given you my power? Where am I allowing my power to sit on the table, and rather than picking it up and using it, I'm letting you overpower me because I'm not picking up my power and using it to defend myself or like state my boundary or whatever to protect my physical beingness. Um, no one ever really is holding our power. They're more overpowering us in response to us not holding our power. Like we've got it tucked away in a closet somewhere and aren't paying attention to it. And so they have more power than we do. Again, not because they're holding it. That's what I was thinking in the beginning of this transit, but that's something I've learned during this transit. They're not holding it. They're just showing you that you need to pick up more of your personal power. So the scrubber that's happening during this cycle is to take the pain of being overpowered, the pain of being disrespected, the pain of having your boundaries charged past like a herd of donkeys coming right into your space. Take all that pain and use it to recognize that you could be holding more power within yourself. And that can be kind of a tough pill to swallow. Um, it kind of reminds me of like the victim archetype. I'm going to link a video in the description actually that's Carolyn Meese going through a description of the victim archetype. I feel like that has been something that has really healed a lot during this Scorpio South Node transit where, yeah, like other people can't give us power. And so often we bypass our own power to yield to other people, and then we're mad at them because they didn't do what we wanted. Wake up. Use your own power to make whatever you want and stop manipulating it out of other people. So this South Node through Scorpio has really lit up any of our emotional manipulation tactics that we are so used to using. We're used to other people caving to our will or other people providing something to us and in them doing their dance like a good monkey, then we feel safe and secure. Dude, this is like the definition of my teens and 20s and my romantic relationships during this time. Is like, I don't feel secure unless you're butter and my biscuit 24/7. And if you stop for even a half a second, I'm gonna be mad about it. So it's like recognizing that we don't need anything from anybody else, that actually there's nothing that anybody else can really provide to us that will truly translate to inner fulfillment and satisfaction. That like we use our power to manipulate other people so that they'll, do what we want so we can feel secure. And then we don't feel secure. We don't feel satisfied. We feel worried that they're not going to do it next time, that we're going to have to keep applying this pressure to get it what we want. And you don't. The Taurus North Node cycle, the beauty of it has been to show us that inner peace isn't something that anybody ever is going to give to us. It's something that we ourselves choose to relax into. We choose to let go of the thorn out of our paw. And in the letting go of that, there is peace. Peace is natural for us. To be emotionally disrupted is unnatural. There's something, I don't mean that. That didn't come out right, but like it's not our natural state. Like we are meant to feel good. That is our natural state. So if you don't feel good, something is wrong. There's a shard of glass in your heart. Something is wrong. And with that, I'm going to put in the description my video, The Wound of Conditional Love, because that has been one of the biggest shards that this Scorpio South Node has helped me to process and really extract from my heart, this deep emotional wound that has caused me so much pain, so many other insecure, defensive, trying to control the situation to avoid more pain like this. And this transit has brought me through the stages of actually healing some of those deep emotional wounds. One of the other things that I want to point out with this transit is that basically through silent meditation. So like the transit started at the end of January, and at the end of February, I stepped into silent meditation again, I've tried many times and I'm not good at it. And it sucks. It's terrible. I got all kinds of reasons why I don't like it. I sit down to meditate and it's quiet. I'm outside. The sun is shining. I close my eyes and in less than 10-20 seconds, I have like a waking nightmare of seeing my dog hurt and somebody like the vision that just didn't happen. It was like a hallucination, like a fantasy, a nightmare. Um, Somebody had come to my house and hurt my dog, and there was like blood everywhere in her body, and like it was absolutely terrible. And my eyes jerk open, and I'm like, this is why I hate this. This is why I hate meditating. And the intuition came over me that said, like, but why does this scare you? Like, why is this the worst thing that you can be shown? And basically, I didn't close my eyes again, but I sat with that question and I looked back in at what I was being shown as far as like, what are the components? What are the elements of what happened here? Someone came into my home. They breached my most sacred boundary. Talk about piss me off. So I was angry. That was one of the pieces. Hurt my dog. Are you fucking kidding me? Again, angry. And all of all of that, like anger that I was able to find when I really started like teasing apart the components of like what was in the nightmare, um, the anger. I'm like, okay, so why would that make you so angry? Sink down a little deeper underneath the anger is the fear. And beneath the fear is the attachment. Is the I can't live without this thing. It's the holding on to the sanctity of my home. I'm attached to the sanctity of my boundary of my home, and I'm attached to my dog. And like these are such normal human things, but it's like that really shows like those attachments they torment us because if we need it, then we have to be afraid of losing it because life isn't as good. Life gets worse when I lose this thing. So now I'm terrified. Now I'm in a defensive, insecure position because I have to try to figure out how to keep this thing. And that is the posture that we have really relaxed out of. And I personally took that journey of relaxing out of that posture and coming into my body through crying buckets and buckets and buckets and buckets of tears. And like, that's basically what overwhelmed me was as I really looked at, like, I'm not angry that they hurt my dog. I'm scared that my dog would ever go away. There's no scenario in which my dog goes away and I'm not upset by that. And so I feel like what I did was like I grieved these connections, these attachments to my animals for the last like year and a half. I've been grieving them. None of them died, but I've been grieving them all the same that like I'll have to let go of you someday. And even just that simple fact of having to do it someday is enough to make me want to just bawl. It hurts. And to really feel that pain and let those emotions come up to come out. That has been my experience of the Taurus Scorpio cycle. So that brings us to this cycle of Aries North Node and Libra South Node, and what we can expect for like what's coming up now that we've laid these pieces in our foundation. We got to feel deeply into, do we like our life? Do we like our life the way it is, or is something missing for us personally to be having the life that we want to have? And then once we realize that, yeah, actually, like there is something that I would like a little bit more of in my life, then here comes the Gemini North Node to give us the information to help us get there. And then here comes the Taurus North Node to help us build it, to help us ground into ourselves so that we can hold the space that nurtures what it is that we truly want. And then the Aries North Node. And I'm going to say, in kind of a foreshadowing way for those upcoming videos, that This is where we light the fire that allows us to protect what it is that we're building from any opposition that it could face. Like there's something that I've been saying a lot lately that is, if you want change in this world, prepare to be challenged. Prepare for pushback, prepare for the headwinds of resistance and people who like the status quo the way it is. They're not wrong, you're not wrong. If you have a good idea, prepare to say it over and over and over and over and over until it happens. That's the mark of a good leader, is that they're like a dog with a bone and they don't give up just because somebody said, nah, I don't want to do that. Okay, that's fine. I'm still pushing. I'm still charging forward. I'm still doing what feels right to me, no matter the consequences. I am following my inner fire to protect what feels sacred to me. And if that clashes with society and the rules or whatever between people and me, that the inner fire is going to win. And that sacred light that's inside of all of us is rising to the surface in a new way through this Aries North Node transit. And with that, I want to read you some of the lyrics or words from this song. I'm struggling to describe it because it's half song, half kind of guided meditation. It's called Sit Around the Fire by John Hopkins, Ram Dass, and East Forest. And I've deleted some of it. I've left a lot of it. So it's going to take a second. And I really, 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 really cannot encourage you enough to please go listen to it. And, if you can, close your eyes. If not, keep them open, but look at something that's still and just absorb what it is that he's saying. Absorb the music and the energy of the freedom of what he's saying. And so I'm going to read you some of it. We can do all the deep dives. We can swim a million miles down into the energy of this transit, and we will, because that's my personal jam. But let this serve as like a 5-minute version of the story. Yeah, I like that. It's really time for you to see through the absurdity of your own predicament. You aren't who you thought you were. You just aren't that person. And in this very lifetime, you can know it. Right now, the real work you have to do is in the privacy of your own heart. All of the external forms are lovely, but the real work is your inner connection. Don't worship the gate. Go into the inner temple. Everything in you that you don't need, you can let go of. You don't need loneliness, for you couldn't possibly be alone. You don't need greed because you already have it all. You don't need doubt because you already know. The confusion is saying, I don't know. But the minute you are quiet, you find out that in truth you do know. For in you, you know. Plane after plane will open to you. I want to know who I really am. As if in each of us, there once was a fire. And for some of us, there seems as if there are only ashes now. But when we dig in the ashes, we find one ember. And very gently, we fan that ember, blow on it. It gets brighter. And from that ember, we rebuild the fire. The only thing that's important is that ember. That's what you and I are here to celebrate. That though we've lived our life totally involved in the world, we know that we're of the spirit. The ember gets stronger, flame starts to flicker a bit, and pretty soon you realize that all we're going to do for eternity is sit around the fire. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I cannot recommend enough that you go check out the version on YouTube. I've linked it in the description box. I've played that over and over and over, and I feel like nothing else has gotten me more ready for this Aries North Node transit of tending to that inner fire, tending to that inner ember, treating that ember as sacred amongst everything else that the world has to offer, and letting that glow then into a form of self-trust that we have not been able to reach before. So this North Node in Aries, South Node through Libra transit promises to be really transformational and really a culmination of so many things that we have been working on and integrating over a lot of these different cycles. And once we get beyond that, so I promised we would look forward a couple cycles. The next one, and this is partly why I'm so interested in these next cycles, is because I have a Pisces North Node. And so that means that that is coming next. After the Aries Libra, we'll have Pisces Virgo. And so January of 2025, the North Node will move from Aries to Pisces, and the South Node will go from Libra to Virgo. And my North Node is at 17 degrees of Pisces, so my nodal return will be like early in 2026. We all have a nodal return every 18 and a half years, so that means like when you're 18 and a half, when you're 37, and you can just keep that going every 18 and a half years. We all, every single human being on the planet, is having a nodal return. And what that means, whether you're Taurus North Nodes, Aries, Pisces, whatever, doesn't matter. When you have your nodal return personally for your chart, like I will in 2026, that is a turning point moment of getting more aligned, getting more up on the path of your soul's journey. Like I think about where I was at 18 and a half, and I was having such an experience of like I think back to the Aries North Node chapter and then the Pisces North Node chapter and like what that created then during my nodal return. And it was like such an expansion that happened through Aries as far as my leadership self expanding. And I gotta pick a piece of cake. Hang on, please. Hello?
There's not much in the way of cake.
Don't worry, there was no cake, but we're gonna have some cookies instead. So, yeah, it was such an expansion through the Aries cycle just before of my leadership, and that took me on this journey of something that, I just could never have imagined for my life. And that was really just the beginning of everything that has happened, obviously since I was 18 and a half. So to be coming up on the next one definitely has me reflecting back to what was it during that time that happened. And when I look at the dates for the Pisces Virgo cycle, so the last time the North Node went through Pisces was from June of 2006 until December of 2007. And so that was my first year away from home. That was my first time like going away to college and having my own experience. Um, my North Node is also in my 12th house, and just the unknown of it all, like starting at the beginning of a journey where like I have no idea what I want to major in, I have no idea what I want to be, and now I'm at college paying good money to become something that I have no idea what I want to be. It was very much like I had no choice but to go with the flow kind of thing because there was nothing being revealed to me. And so I can definitely see the correlations where a Pisces North Node is asking you to learn how to surrender, is learning how to go with the flow of what is and accept and transcend whatever is, to love unconditionally whatever is. And with a Virgo South Node, we also become really aware of what are our routines? What is our preference for what our day-to-day life looks like. And we realize that, especially when the South Node is in Virgo, that we have a bit of a control freak side that is anything but surrendering and going with anybody's flow. No, I have a checklist and we haven't marked off number 7 yet. Like Virgo South Node. Hello. So during that transit, it's like the stress goes up. The Virgo South Node can be stressful because it brings to light like all of the pieces that you're aware of that aren't perfect yet. And in the world, there's like countless imperfect pieces are here with us. And so that's where there's a lot to surrender to. And so if you think back to that time of your life of, the December 2006, or sorry, June 2006 to December of 2007, um, and get a sense of like what were the stressful things and what was the unknown that you had no choice but to surrender to. And that's basically where we're headed with the Pisces North Node transit coming up then for January 2025 through July of 2026. So then the last cycle that we're going to cover is the North Node going on into Aquarius and the South Node going on into Leo. And that is happening July of 2026 through January of 2028. So that's where we get to. In January of 2028, we are finishing the Leo South Node cycle, and we're entering into the Cancer South Node cycle, which would be the inverse of where we started with the North Node going through Cancer, bringing it full circle. So this is like basically covering like one half of the journey through this full North Node process that takes 18 and a half years. So where we'll get to is with this North Node in Aquarius starting July 2026. What's happening with that, and that's why I went all the way here, is because that's where the North Node and Pluto are going to meet up. And that, I didn't look up when the last time that happened was. I would love to know. If you do the research and you find the date, definitely put it in the description box for us all. But it doesn't happen very often because the North Node goes around in 18 and a half years and Pluto's barely moving. So it takes about that long, I would think. Maybe a little bit less since they're moving towards each other where the nodes are retrograde and the Pluto's moving forward. But anyways, 15, 16, 17 years-ish, I gotta think, is how often the North Node conjuncts Pluto. Half that time is how much the South Node conjuncts Pluto. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a transformative time, a time where Pluto in Aquarius, that might be the only time the North Node conjuncts Pluto while it's in Aquarius. It might do it again at the very end because Pluto's in Aquarius for 20 years. But yeah, so that promises to be a transformative time where I also like to think about, and this really lets us do that. So I like to think about, every other cycle is back into feminine or masculine. Like right now, we're finishing up Taurus Scorpio. That's a feminine cycle. And then next, we're going to go into Aries Libra. That's a masculine cycle because we're in fire and air signs. And last time we did Gemini and Sagittarius. And every time you flip back and forth between these masculine and feminine, you switch which one is the North Node in and which one is the South Node in. Like last we had the South Node go through Sagittarius. That was the last masculine cycle. South Node through fire. And now next we have North Node through fire. And then after that, we'll have South Node through fire. And that'll be Leo. That's the one after the Virgo South Node. So Leo South Node will be again South Node through fire, where that's a deep purge of kind of all the historical story and version of who we are. And we're getting rid of that, not because we have to, not because anybody is making us, not because the stars are forcing some fate on us. But, no, we set our own destiny when we choose to come here. But this is an opening up on that North Node side, especially when the North Node conjuncts Pluto exactly. It is a massive opening up, not to what is good for you individually, but what is good for the all. And so what I want to say about that, because it does, like I said, like as you go back and forth between South Node through fire and then North Node through fire and then South Node through fire and then North Node through fire, it's like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, I'm supposed to do the Aries thing next. Like, right, we're having North Node go through fire, where like every bit of your desire and your life force energy should be directed at whatever you personally think is right. You and your judgment is paramount during this Aries North Node cycle. And then when we get a couple cycles ahead and we have this Leo South Node cycle, like there is no right, like one right way to be, where we can say you should live for yourself, you should live for other people, you should prioritize what your heart wants, you should look at what's good for the collective. Like these things are often in opposition to each other, and sometimes, like the simple answer is sometimes you should do it this way and sometimes you should do it this way. And that's one of the reasons I really, really love the nodal cycles that we have, because I feel like it does show us which way to lean. Like the North Node is the equivalent of like a North Star in our development. And so, and the South Node is also giving us a really good idea at what kinds of shadows, what kind of history is being processed at this time. And so, this framework of understanding of the North and South Node and the signs that they move through during this most upcoming cycle, this Aries North Node cycle, where we have the North Node going through fire, we are developing our fire. And that embracing of the fire, the heat, the anger, the passion, the explosion, the eruption of just raw, primal, carnal energy, raw. And it feels so powerful. And that's what we should be doing. Like during the North Node through Aries, you should lean in that direction of like your fire will guide the way. And then get a couple cycles ahead to where we have the South Node going through fire and the North Node going through air again. The North Node going through Aquarius, coming over Pluto. It will be a transformation. Like I see it, the Pluto the Pluto symbolism is often the phoenix of like the old version burning to the ground, and in its place from the ashes of the old rises the new form. And so we have so much unfolding that has been going on for years at this point, is building to, I would say that North Node conjunct Pluto will be a turning point. I mean, Pluto is very associated with transformation to the point where, like, the old is not even recognizable inside the new. Like, that's the phoenix. Like, the old one burns to the ashes to the where it's not even existing anymore. The caterpillar melts to goo before it can become the butterfly. Like you would never look at the new one and just know, oh yeah, obviously that butterfly came out of that caterpillar. Like unless you saw it happen, you wouldn't believe your eyes at what new version comes out of the cocoon. And that North Node conjunct Pluto is a moment of coming out of the cocoon big time. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel for all of the future videos along this series. Next, we'll be doing that 30,000 foot view. We'll come down from 300,000 feet and just do the 30,000 foot view on really diving into this Aries Libra sister sign pair and what the nodes transiting those signs is likely to bring up for us energetically, and then what are some of the ways that those energies could manifest themselves. So that'll be in the next video. If you have any questions, like in anything that I've brought up or anything that you're hearing out there in the spiritual community, please leave those in the comments. They are so inspiring to me. I love, ow, Nuggy, she scratched right on my leg. Um, I love your questions. They're so inspiring to me. I love answering questions. So anytime you can leave me a comment and let me know like what stood out to you or what are you still curious about, I personally find that very energizing as far as like motivating me to make more videos. So especially on this series though, I would be glad to bake in the answers to those questions in these future videos. Also, in the description box, like I mentioned throughout, I did link a few different things, so feel free to check out those extra videos. And there's also links to my Patreon where I host a monthly spiritual conversation over Zoom. So if you want to interact with me, you sure can. That's set at Pay What Feels Good. There's lots of other stuff on the channel. I live stream every other Friday. Come check it out. I would love to have you there. It's been my honor to connect with you and to bring you this information and these stories. I look forward to the next pile of goods that I'm able to drop at your doorstep with the next video. Until then, I do hope that you will take such good care of yourselves, and so will I.